Good morning and welcome all over again. Sunday edition here. To all you Sunday congregation people, I don't know what to call you. Thank you very much for coming. From those who are just stepping out of their virtual churches to those faithful followers of Breakfast Extra, you are all one and all welcome to the Sunday edition, where we dissect the week's headlines with just enough tea. Actually, that's coffee. That's going to keep you all abreast of the past week. Now, this morning, let's start from a place that defines our tomorrow. Let's start with our education, or at least what's left of it. Because right now, our so-called exam season is looking like a season finale of a very bad drama, a Nollywood one. JAMB admitted to errors that will see over 370,000 students retake the UTME exams. Yes, after all that sleepless nights, all that money spent on tutorials, transports, data, your mother's prayers, JAMB just simply turned around and went, oops, I did it again. Meanwhile, WAEC thought, let's spice things up a bit. And then they introduced something that should only exist in horror movies. They said, after all, the midnight reading sessions, let's do midnight exams. And these weren't just cozy air-conditioned halls. No, not at all. Students, and I mean kids, sat in the dark using mobile phone flashlights to write their WASC papers. Now, that's not the education that we signed up for now, is it? Naturally, this didn't sit down well with anybody still holding on to their sanity. So the Nigerian Bar Association stepped in, demanding sanctions for those who actually orchestrated this madness. Because this isn't just administrative failure, it's actually a generational sabotage, a national disgrace, and it's being served to us in installments. And we're looking at it degrade from our education system. And as we mourn what's happening in the classrooms, hey, let's turn to sports now, Abby. Maybe there's glory there. Not really. You see, the National Sports Festival held in Ogun State, congratulations. It looks actually more like a reality survival show, and I'll tell you why. Athletes protested over unpaid allowances, poor feeding, and being made to sleep on bare floors like evacuees, not competitors. If that doesn't spell not representing your athletes properly, then you have to wonder what hope for the unpatriotic, or maybe just less patriotic. But then, just this weekend came the real tragedy. No jokes here. 20 athletes from Kano State lost their lives in a road crash on their way home from the National Sports Festival in Ogun State. Now, these weren't just statistics. They were young people, talented, committed, and hopeful. And I'll come back to that word. They ran their race, but the nation didn't seem to protect them for the journey back. And now we must ask the critical question, was there no better logistical arrangements, or maybe safer alternative, no dignity for these representatives of our future? Or are we now at that point where even patriotic excellence comes at the risk of death? And even now, while the nation mourns, President Bola Tinubu's midterm scorecard and speech comes to mind in what felt kind of like, dream of better days moments. Very I have a dream-esque type speech. He said Nigerians would soon feel the benefits of subsidy removal in their daily lives. Well, dear Mr. President, we're definitely feeling something. We're feeling the pain at the pumps, the pressure in the markets, and the heat in every single street. Your dreams are valid, don't get us wrong, but you see, for many Nigerians, hope is on the back burner now. And the renewal process, the renewed hope that you promised, is running on low battery, it would seem. So dear government, please, we beg you to pick up the pace, because Nigerians aren't just waiting anymore. Some are literally dying under the weight of this renewed hope. So, tell you guys what, on that bombshell, let's begin the show. Let's jump into the headlines, see what the papers have for us. As I say, good morning to you, Judith. Welcome. I'm wondering if you're ready to check the front pages with me to see who's trending, who's pretending, and maybe who's pending.
Unfortunately, I'm not. I don't think I have it in me this morning for the headlines. But as always, we got to do the job. Quite a somber mood for your monologue this morning, but also very important and necessary.
We're mourning a lot. We're mourning the athletes, first of all.
Yeah.
may they rest in peace, and also mourning our education system, because
honestly, very somber.
So much talk about our education in the past 3 weeks, and it just keeps getting worse. From last week, I thought it was going to get better, maybe some kind of, reform, but not yet. They're like, wait until maybe 2027. At least we're done with all these preparations for that.
Right, and what's even much more scary about this whole thing, and we're going to talk about this clearly in the 9 o'clock hour, but sooner or later we need to start talking about, the approach to education by the ruling elite in Nigeria. But again, Mazino, well done with the monologue.
Thank you very much. Let me come over there so we can do the headlines.
Yeah, sure, get over here. Yeah.
I'll be there.
A very good morning to you and welcome to Sunday edition of Breakfast Extra, where we unpack the biggest stories shaping Nigeria today. We begin with the emotional rescue and reunion of the 6 kidnapped passengers who were abducted by pirates on April 4th, 2025 in the Niger Delta. Then we turn to Mukwa, Niger State, where devastating floods have claimed lives and displaced hundreds, prompting federal relief efforts. On the economic front, the presidency seeking approval for a 45 trillion naira loan. What does this mean for Nigeria's already strained economy? Analyst Ayotunde Abiodun will break it down for us. And in education, JAMB's mass exam retake and WAEC's midnight testing debacle have sparked outrage. Dr. Joy Issa joins us to explore how to fix the broken system. And we also mark World No Tobacco Day with Dr. Chukwu Betred, who would highlight the health risks and how Nigerians can quit smoking. Plus, the ECOWAS at 50 summit hosted by President Tinubu and the shocking arrest of suspected ritualist Levi Obieze in Lagos. As always, we will bring you all the biggest stories right here for a Sunday morning. But first, let's get started on a special guest.
Yes, indeed. A very special morning this morning, as we have a special guest, not just to Breakfast Extra, but to Nigeria. I will tell you who it is. Now, we know Lagos traffic can feel like, a triathlon on its own. So, yeah, we're athletes, every single one of us. But imagine cycling into this chaos from Ibadan, or maybe let's say you used your grandfather's bicycle. And that's not just one stop on the journey, that's just the beginning of thousands of kilometers. And I'm talking about this happened thousands of kilometers ago. Yes, folks, our guest today didn't fly into Nigeria, he didn't drive, he didn't hop a bus, he pedaled his way into Lagos. We'd like you guys to meet Torrance Scott Mecklenburg, a remarkable young man from South Africa who is cycling through the entire African continent. That's right, he's pedaling across Africa.
Interesting.
And I don't mean that as a metaphor, but a very literal pedaling across it, like leg-powered tour of the motherland. I don't know, Judith, what do you think about it?
I mean, he's been traversing cultures, climates and continents as well, and nothing but sheer determination. And that's why we're going to be talking to him here on the show. And a bike with some serious ancestral mileage as well. His ultimate goal is Morocco, by the way. But before his pedals go off again on Monday, we have him right here in the studio with us. Torrin, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you here.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations so far. And well done. This is sheer determination, strength, courage, and just resilience. And one has to ask, why a bicycle?
Why did you choose that?
That's a good question. I always loved cycling. I grew up riding with my dad a lot, and so it's always felt like home to me to be on a bicycle, and so that kind of it was natural for me to want to ride a bicycle. And also, if you think about it, a bicycle is a very quiet, kind of slow way to travel, but you can still make a lot of ground. You can still travel at least 100, 150 kilometers in a day, but along the way you get to experience so much. You're really in the elements, you're connected to the people that you meet.
I know what you mean when you say in the elements.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell him?
He's a biker.
I'm a motor tourist. I'm a motor tourer, and I travel across Nigeria on a motorbike.
Across the
Well, you're doing it on a bicycle. No, you're doing it on your grandfather's bicycle.
Strength.
Yes.
Oh, first of all, you really must trust this bicycle because it was your grandfather's. Why the choice for your grandfather's bicycle? Is there a story there?
Well, the story is actually my grandfather, my dad's dad, he's from America, and he's had a bike shop his whole life.
Oh.
So when my dad grew up, also like me riding with his dad and stuff like that. And anyway, I was visiting, and I went to the bike shop just to visit my granddad and say hi. And I was planning this trip, and I was thinking, I need a bike, but I want a simple, sturdy old bike that I can fix it anywhere along the way, So something that's relatively simple and just reliable. I don't want something fancy.
It's also sentimental, if you ask me.
Exactly.
Yeah, it must be.
And so this bicycle, it was in the shop, just there, and he was like, I had to buy it from him.
You have to buy it, your own grandpa.
But I'm glad I could support him, and he gave me a good deal. But so I got the bike. It was, I call it Peggy.
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 Peggy. Oh, Peggy. That's nice.
Peggy Sue, and it's like a beautiful purple bicycle, and really.
She's done the distance, hasn't she?
She has.
How far have you ridden currently? And more to that, how many cultures have you crossed? I mean, you had to ride from South Africa. You must have crossed through Namibia.
Yes.
I'm very interested in the DRC, what it was like there with everything that we hear about the DRC, and what it felt like to ride into Nigeria. Tell us about
What's
the
people like, the food, the
what
culture.
changed from
reception.
country to country, the reception.
No, it's been mind-blowing. So I've ridden nearly 9,000 kilometers.
Wow.
I don't track every day like exactly how far I do. I just kind of estimate based on like Google Maps and other like GPS apps and stuff. But up to now it's approximately 9,000 kilometers. I've crossed 7 countries. I didn't actually cross the DRC because the visa was really difficult. I think at the time when I was there, it was impossible to get a visa. And so what I did was from Angola, there's another part of Angola that's separated by the DRC on the coast. It's called Cabinda. So there's a ferry that goes around. So I went around, and then I went into the Republic of Congo. But you asked about the cultures.
Yes.
And so that was a big thing, a big reason for me to want to do this. I'm fascinated with African philosophy, African culture, and the different indigenous ways of knowing about the world and knowing about each other. I studied philosophy at university, and that sparked the interest.
I can see.
I did. My majors were economics and philosophy, and I loved it. But it was all learning in a classroom.
You wanted to reach out and touch all of that philosophy, all of that people, culture,
exactly.
and that's what exactly you're doing. And I find it, I don't know, Julie.
Yeah, it's not only is it fascinating, and not only is it just so much sheer strength, but I have to talk about the toll this must take on your body. 9,000 kilometers.
Every day?
So far. What's it like every single day when you stop? What are you doing to keep up your energies up, just to keep going?
No, it's a good question. So I mean, cycling, it does make you strong. So I'm feeling strong.
You think you can take me?
I don't know. You're a tough biker, man. I don't know.
He's a tough. I can't push him like this.
What you were saying, it does make you tough, doesn't it?
But so I do. I feel like I get stronger. The one thing is getting enough calories in, because you're constantly burning calories, like working. So after a while you lose weight. And so you have to eat so much to just maintain otherwise you go into a calorie deficit. So that's quite tough.
But how do you manage that? Because if you have to eat a lot, noticing that you're crossing through cultures,
different
traditions, foods, how do you know what to eat so you don't get upset?
Unfortunately.
And how many times have you gotten upset?
I have a feeling you have a tough stomach. And you can
now it's tough. It's become tough.
It's become tough.
In the beginning it wasn't.
In the beginning.
There were some times, in Angola. So Namibia is similar to South Africa.
Okay.
I think when I reached the other side of Namibia, I had gained weight.
Oh, wow.
Because
it was regular.
It's regular, but also they have a lot of good meat. Venison and good beef, biltong, And the people of Namibia are very generous, and whenever we met people or farmers, they would invite us in and give us, everyone's a hunter, everyone's been hunting. Oh yeah, we just got this oryx, so, they'd give us meat and stuff like that. So I actually feasted when I was in Namibia, and I got to the other side,
well, it prepared you for the rest of Africa.
Yeah, it was good, because then in Angola, the food started to change drastically, and it was really good, but I think a lot of unfamiliar things, also, more informal cooking environments where there's other bacteria that
isn't that the joy of it? I mean, the risk.
Exactly.
If you don't risk it, you wouldn't enjoy it.
Exactly.
But then other risks also included our security. And with everything that people think about Africa, I'm wondering what the real experience was like when it comes to security for you.
Yeah.
How secure did you feel pedaling a bicycle, nothing enveloping you across borders?
Yeah.
What was it like for the different countries?
For miles.
So people always ask me, what's the scariest thing that happened? Did you have any bad moments with other people? Did you feel in danger? And I actually have not felt in danger.
You feel more alive instead, don't you?
Yeah. So I think there's a magical force field when you're riding a bicycle. People open up.
People are good to you.
And even people who maybe would have tried to take advantage of me, they just can't believe it.
They're awed by the journey.
Riding a bicycle from South Africa. They would have tried to scam me if I was in a car, or it would have been a different story maybe. But I think that really helps me. And so I mean, in the beginning I was nervous, and locking my bicycle every night and bringing my things into a tent, and more worried. And then eventually, after a while, I just would leave everything outside and just. I didn't want.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, what's the wildest place that you slept at?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay, so in Gabon, I rode. It was this beautiful jungle. It was one of the main roads, but it's super remote, and through this massive rainforest. And on the way that day, I actually, in that evening, I saw an elephant.
Oh wow! I hope you take pictures.
I did. It was in the bush, so I got a small video, but it's not very clear.
Not clear.
And so I've seen 3 elephants, or 4 elephants, but on 3 occasions. But at all the times I didn't manage to get a good photo.
Wow.
So you slept in the rainforest.
But anyway, so in this rainforest, I got to this riverside spot that was next to this huge river, and it was completely remote. And all the locals are when they see me riding past, they're like, "You must be careful of the animals here." And I said, "Yeah." And so anyway, I slept there. I even had a swim in the river. I didn't even think about the crocodiles, but it was,
I'm absolutely jealous.
That is just brilliant. And
I'm very jealous.
I have to ask, there must be more to just wanting to see the world and seeing the people and the culture in Africa. There must be more to this sheer determination to get to more
the motivation?
Africa. What's the other side of this story?
For me, whenever people ask me, so when I set out, I called it Adventure for Education. I actually had some friends. We went together, and we traveled to Gabon together, and then they went home from Gabon. And the whole idea, so I work a lot with kids, and I believe that foundation phase education is one of the most important spaces we have, in growing people and changing the fabric of society. So I love to work with kids, and I'm a yoga teacher, and so I've done training to, it's like a kids yoga thing, but it's basically just like a workshop where you're helping kids get in their bodies.
So you're bringing awareness to this with your cycling?
So I just stop along the way and do, I'll volunteer at schools or foundations, or in a village. I'll just offer to the elders of the village, say, "Listen, thank you for hosting me. Just something I'd like to contribute. I do this thing with kids, and they can all come in. It's like an exercise,
So, 2 countries into West Africa. I'm sure that the culture is different and everything. You're heading out from tomorrow. You're heading to Morocco, Northern Africa. What are you expecting to see along the way, and what routes do you intend to take?
So I'm going to be on the coast for most of the way. I'm going to go through Ghana, or Benin, Togo, Ghana. Ivory Coast, up to, then I'm going to go through Guinea. It's quite difficult. The visa thing is a challenge. So if I stuck to the coast, I would have had to get like 3 extra visas for Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau. So I'm just going to only go through Guinea because it's more affordable
Just
for me.
hassle-free. That must be expensive.
Yeah, the visas
The
have
funds.
been probably the most expensive thing.
And not just the visas, but also, servicing your bike here for yourself, food as well. What's it like? Is the funds running out?
It is. I mean, it's not unlimited, so I have to be careful. I live off quite a small budget.
Okay.
And sometimes, I mean, yesterday I got my bike serviced at this really nice bike shop on Victoria Island called Pit Stop.
Yeah.
And they have this really cool restaurant there, and it's really expensive, but it's got cappuccinos and really nice food that I like.
And you indulged,
stuff that I haven't had in a while. So I had a bit of a treat myself there, and it was amazing.
I know.
But usually I live off like between $5 and $10 a day.
Wow.
That's my budget.
That's still a lot for some African countries.
and
I mean,
that's the
even
thing.
here in Nigeria, that's quite a sizable budget for a family to live on.
Exactly, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But I mean, you would need even more than that because you're traversing an entire continent. So I can imagine buying waters and cappuccinos. That would be expensive. You are ending up in Morocco.
Yes.
I've been to Morocco.
Oh wow.
Absolutely love it.
Couldn't wait to get to that point.
No, that's not the part I can't wait to get back to. The fact is, what I can't wait to get back to is the fact that on Thursday I did something quite similar to what you do. For no reason, I jumped on my bike and I just looked for a village on the map in Ogun State. No idea where it was, nobody, and I got there and I was surrounded by village chiefs of whom I had to buy a gift for.
Yes.
But they were so welcoming and I loved the experience, and I said to myself, even if I rode in the rain and back, that I would do it again. So I can exactly imagine and experience what you're experiencing, and I want to do it. I just hope that New Central can sponsor a trip to South Africa on my bike. Putting it out there.
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will. Before we let you go, I must say, Torian, it's well done. Congratulations so far. The journey you've come this far, and this, for sure, you're going to finish strong. But I do have to ask you, how many days did it take for you to get out of each country? Just think about it.
It depends on the country and the route that I take, and what my intentions are. Some places, especially when I was traveling with friends, we took our time, we really we went all around and we stayed in places for long, and so it just depends. So maybe a month, maybe 3 weeks.
You started this journey how long ago?
In May last year.
In May last year?
Yeah.
So it's over a year now?
Yes.
How long will it take you to get to Morocco?
I don't know.
Could be another year, you think?
Maybe, no, I think now I'm traveling a lot faster than I was before.
Because you're lighter,
Because you're lighter.
Yes,
You're no longer in Namibia eating all that biltong.
Exactly.
But Morocco is the final destination because, why is Morocco the final destination?
I think, so it's a really cool country to tour on a bicycle. It's very beautiful.
Yes.
And it's kind of at the top of Africa. I know it's not at the very top.
Yeah.
If I was thinking to go all the way to the end of Africa, I would, Tunisia, but it's close to Europe, and I thought maybe when I get to Morocco, it could be nice to get a boat across to Spain and travel around Europe. So it was kind of random. It was a bit random, but it was let's cycle to Morocco. Let's go. That was the idea.
All this wanderlust, impulsive
I'll give you a
individuals.
little interesting fact about Morocco that I experienced myself.
Yeah.
Not a single obese Moroccan.
Really?
Watch out. Not one. Fantastic diet.
Yeah.
Mostly vegetables
Good,
and fruit and all.
I've heard such good things about the food. It's
It's
nice.
good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, Karen, I must say congratulations again.
Thank you.
I know that you finished strong.
Thank you very much.
And we will be following you. So make sure to go follow Torrance Scott. He's on social media. He's been sharing his journey with us. His grandpa's bike has been on this global adventure as he's paddling his way from South Africa, and he's now in Nigeria. He's leaving tomorrow, and he's heading for the big finish, which is Morocco. Once again,
Thank you very much, Torin. Torin.
yeah, there we go.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be back with more conversation here inside of Breakfast Extra. And you're welcome again, Breakfast Extra here. It was a scene of tears, relief, and quite, well, some sort of quiet strength, as 6 kidnapped passengers who were abducted by pirates on April 4, 2025 during a journey from Bile Kingdom to Port Harcourt finally reunited with their loved ones. The victims, 5 men and 1 woman, were held captive for nearly 2 weeks by gunmen claiming to be Ijaw boys from Bayelsa, who cited retaliation against the Bile community's stand against oil bunkering as their motive. The victims recounted beatings, starvations, and also traumatic psychological abuse while in the kidnappers' camp. The rescue was achieved through a joint effort involving the Nigerian Navy, Joint Task Force operatives, and also local security outfits, aided by vigilante groups and actionable intelligence from community leaders. Now, their release on April 15 was followed by a guarded but emotional reunion in Port Harcourt, where families wept and embraced the rescued after days of dread and also uncertainty. The moment marked both a sigh of relief and a grim reminder of the dangers still lurking along the creeks and rivers of River State. Now let's take you to an emotional piece here in Port Harcourt, or in Nigeria here in Port Harcourt, that was put together by our new central correspondent, Bola Festus. Let's take a look at this.
She's supposed to write JST this year. When I'm washing others' clothes, I'm not washing my daughter's clothes. Oluwato for me. No love in marriage again, no peace, no happiness. Because our children is our happiness. Leave me go back to this house. Let us have joy. I need this time.
These heart-wrenching statements from a grieving family whose 12-year-old daughter has been missing for 9 months is another sad reminder of the security challenges facing the average Nigerian.
He even threatened that my daughter's private parts will be cut. My daughter will be pieces. And all our private parts will be sold to Alaji.
Yes.
Of which we have all this conversation on record.
It's not now, personal. You please. Government should please. My fellow women should please. I'm passing through pains that I can't explain to anybody. Sometimes I just be inside my room crying. Because I'm missing her. Sometimes I will carry her clothes. That a lot of me come back. Because of this, my father-in-law is in stroke. Where is my sister? Is she sleeping on the bed or she's sleeping on the floor? Here is my sister, my bedmate, someone that we gist. Both of us we gist. Sometimes we stay late at night, we talk to each other. My sister made this cap for me. She made it. And our plan was that when school closed, we tell our father what to enter a business making cap because people say they love the cap.
CCTV footage around the neighborhood captured Favor being led to a tricycle by a stranger accompanied by our teenage friend. Days after, the friend's family reportedly moved out of the neighborhood, raising suspicions about their involvement in Favor's disappearance.
They have codedly moved away from the environment.
Are you suspecting anything with this?
Of course, everybody around me is a suspect. How much more? The one whose daughter was captured in a CCTV camera that lured my daughter away from the compound.
In another twist, an unknown number contacted the Oluwa Sheyis, claiming to be Favor's abductor and demanding a ransom for our release.
I have to call somebody to buy my machine so that I can get money. We gather the money together, we give them. They don't release my daughter.
It's a murder she won.
With disappointment, Favor's father explained how he sent the contact information of the alleged kidnapper to the anti-kidnapping unit in Port Harcourt. Shockingly, investigations traced the kidnapper's mobile number to the Enugu State Correctional Center, suggesting possible inside involvement.
He sent an account details. We made a ransom payment to that same account, of which we have tracked the number to Enugu Correctional Center. And to my greatest surprise, on the 20th of April 2020, 2024, I discovered and I saw that the PRO of the Nigeria Correctional Center, the person of Umar Abubakar, can speedily responded and debunk such a very strong allegation in the prison custody Enugu, and claiming that such thing never happened, claiming that nobody bears such name in that prison, claiming that we never visited the Enugu Correctional Center, of which I have every evidence, I have every proof, I have the picture of the suspected criminal who collected a ransom from me on behalf of my kidnapped daughter, Favor Oluwatofumi Oluwaseyi.
Cases of missing persons is becoming one too many in Port Harcourt that the civil society organizations are now wading in.
We challenge the Nigerian Correctional Service to 1. Conduct an immediate, open and thorough investigation into these allegations. 2. Make public the visit register for December 4th, 2024 to verify the claim that the victim's father, accompanied by police officers from Rivers State, visited the Enugu Correctional Facility. 3. Provide concrete evidence to support their denial to demonstrate transparency and accountability. 4. According to the father, to Favor Oluwaseyi, the real name of the suspect at the Enugu Correctional Service is Chidiebere Chikeze, aka Chiboy. We stand by this statement until otherwise proven. The public deserves to know the truth. An open probe and release of relevant records will help bring those responsible to justice.
Step into this matter.
For the Oluwaseyis, every means within their reach has been explored without positive results, and they are now urging the media to help get their voices heard.
Please, Federal Republic of Nigeria, our own president, Bola Tinubu.
Begging you.
Please,
We are begging you.
Kayode Egbetokun, Inspector General of Police.
We are begging you.
Please, the Acting Controller General of the Prison Correctional Center, we are begging all of you.
We are begging you.
Olubunmi Ojo, the Minister of Interior, we are pleading, we are begging you.
We are begging you.
We are begging this Commissioner of Police of Rivers State, Olubenga Adepoju, we are pleading, we are appealing, we are begging the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu. Please, we beg all of you, swing into action.
This is my daughter.
Like the Oluwaseyi family, several families living in Rivers State have been through similar circumstances. Many have, however, blamed the spate of kidnappings on poor security architecture and negligence on the part of government.
Good afternoon.
In Port Harcourt, Rivers State, for News Central, Bola Festus.
And that report was filed in by Bola Festus as one family is celebrating the rescue or the return of their kidnapped children. Another, and that's the Oluwaseyis, are mourning as their child, 12-year-old, is still in the kidnappers' den. They do not know the whereabouts, even though they have paid ransoms. You could hear the father, Mr. Oluwaseyi, there pleading to every senior citizen of Nigeria and all the ruling elites to come to their aid. Now, joining us now to give us a bit of more insight to this story is Bola Festus, our correspondent live there in Port Harcourt. Bola, just watching that visuals there and just hearing the family and the mother, the father crying, it just sends chills down your spine. What was it like for you, just going through and uncovering this story? Walk us through the process.
May 27th were the days I filed those reports. The reports of the Oluwaseyis still searching for their child. Same day, I filed a report of families reuniting with their loved ones, children and relatives.
As you're seeing there is Oluwaseyis, the father, the mother, and the sister of the lost 12-year-old girl who was kidnapped allegedly by a neighbor in their neighborhood in Port Harcourt. As a 12-year-old girl on the screen. The families have been pleading
saying that they have done all they can for the rescue of their daughter. Bola Festus joins us live now. Bola, are you with us?
Yes, Judy, I'm on now.
Please go ahead.
So I was trying to say that May 27th, the day I filed these two reports, had a sweet, bitter feel for me because in one breath, I reported that the family of the Bile people were reunited with their families or their loved ones that had been kidnapped for 21 days. Now, getting to this spot, the tower of the Bile people, the joy that filled the atmosphere was something very unique. I felt fulfilled as a reporter that having followed their stories for months, finally, they had the cause to smile, the cause to rejoice. Judith, behind the camera, these women gave me a very warm hug and kisses. They were so happy. They were so thankful to News Central for following the story until their loved ones came back home to them. That made me happy. That made me feel satisfied for doing my job. Now, away from there, we drove straight to the Oluwaseyis, who were on the road on the 27th of May, protesting or having a walk to the state police headquarters in Rivers State. Now, according to them, instead of having the Children's Day celebration, they wanted to create awareness that their daughter was still missing and it was 9 months already. So these two feelings, I if you ask me, I didn't know how to manage these two feelings same day and within a very short period of time. So the Oluwaseyis family, alongside our schoolmates,
Yeah, we seem to be having issues again with your network connectivity. We'll try to fix that. Like she just rightfully puts, this must be really, really, sad. A bittersweet day for her, like she described, coming off one, ending one case of kidnapping with parents and seeing that their children have been rescued from the kidnappers' den, and then driving to Oluwaseyis and seeing a home that has been torn apart with anguish and grief and pain, as they retell their heartbreak or heart-wrenching tale of their daughter that has been kidnapped.
Indeed, you are correct. Bittersweet indeed. That's the word to use. Bola, we are struggling through the network here. We really hope that you can tell us more detail if the network will allow us, Bola. Now, I remember being on air with you on the day when the rescue happened, and then to find that there was still another case pending regarding the missing kid here. Now, can you give us an overview of the security situation there in the Niger Delta, if these are the kind of things that they experience on a daily, or if it's seen an uptake recently in the numbers that we're seeing?
The Niger Delta region has always been a place where youths take to illegal oil refining. This is an oil-rich region here. So most of the times when the youths are out of job, when they have nothing to resort to, they go into the creeks, vandalize oil pipelines, and start producing themselves. Now, the case of kidnapping has been linked, came out and told us, resorted to this kidnapping because the security operatives are now dislodging them from their illegal oil activities. So they've now resorted to kidnapping, taking ransom to survive. Now, we have more of insecurity on our waterways in the Niger Delta region. For the people of Bile, there is not a week that passes without hearing that either a boat was hijacked, people were kidnapped, or a boat was stolen from the driver. This has been a concern around this region. And the more concerning issue is that the government is yet to pay rapt attention to this. They treat it as though it's just some passing issue, but this has been persistent. This has been bedeviling the region, especially the Bile waterway. So the people would love for the government, not just the states, but the federal government as well, to wade in. This region can make a whole lot by investing in the
what's the unique
sector.
Biola, what's the unique factor about Bile itself? What do the people in Bile trade in? How do they live their lives? And why is it an attraction for people who have nefarious objectives?
Got oil wells in their community. So this is their most important asset. Apart from oil, they do fishing, but the most valuable assets there right now that the federal government focuses on is the oil well in their community. So if these pirates or oil bunkers turned pirates could have access to their oil wells, they vandalize it, take the crude, go and refine it, and then sell to people. But the problem now is that the security operatives that have been assigned, has been assigned to protect this oil well, which is Tantita, has dislodged them from that activity. So they are now taking it out on the citizens of Bile. Now, Bile has just the sea routes as they right now. You can't go by road. The only means is by the sea. So you have to travel across the sea to get to that island. So that is the unique situation for them.
Right. I want to circle back to the Oluwaseis, and I think it's important that we highlight their story, just seeing the despair in that family, the father, the mother, and the daughter. Just tell us a bit, give us a bit of updates on their matter.
The update right now is that the police chief, the commissioner for police in Rivers State, asked them to allow them 2 weeks to investigate the matter and then get back to them. So the time is ticking already. 2 weeks was the duration the police gave. It's almost a week already. So we are looking forward to the expiration of 2 weeks to get the latest from them. But the Oluwaseis family are not relenting. They have vowed to get to the end of this at all costs. Legal. Now, even the civil society organization is with them on the 27th of May to have their voices heard. So this matter is not something that will be swept under the carpet anytime soon, especially with the fire in the hearts of this family.
And the Oluwaseis case seemed to be an isolated case, as a lot different from the kidnappings that we're seeing in Port Harcourt and the metropolitan itself. We've seen, the Bile waterways kidnaps, but not with the Oluwaseis case. Why is there a distinction with your case?
Their case happens to be that of a suspected neighbor kidnapping their child. I spoke with the father over and over again, and he kept telling me that he is suspecting their neighbor because the neighbor had moved out of the neighborhood. Now they live in the same compound. So it's a compound.
Now, I think it's about time we just simply put a cap on that conversation. It's unfortunate that the network won't allow us have full 100% of everything that you're saying, Biola. But Biola, we want to say thank you for at least trying. I think we got plenty of the information that you needed to let us have from the discussion there. We hope that you continue to follow the story so that we can get an end to it. Hopefully this little girl would be found and she'll be reunited with her family, much like the other rescuees. Is that a word, I think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, from the previous instance. Thank you very much once again, Biola, and thank you to everybody who's been with us this past 1 hour. We still got 2 hours to go inside of Breakfast Extra. We're going to do the news at the top of the hour and then more conversation when we are done with that. Welcome again, and time for the headlines this morning. Let's start with our first one. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now, 61 new suspected cases of cholera have been recorded in Bokus local government area of Plateau State after 3 deaths were earlier reported among the victims. Plateau State's epidemiologist Dr. Marin Job, during an exclusive interview with New Central's Chizabanyo and Wayne Joss, added that 4 of the victims are currently on admission in the health facility where they are recuperating. As cholera thrives in unhygienic environments, leaving infected people with uncontrollable passing of very watery stool, members of the public are urged to maintain high level of self and environmental hygiene.
If the patient presents early, and is being rehydrated well, the patients have high chances of survival. It's exactly when the patient presents late, because what kills people from cholera is dehydration, severe dehydration. So if there is no fluid replacement in that patient as early as possible, that can kill the patient so fast. And then electrolyte imbalance too can also cause death of the patient.
When you get fruits, it's very important that you soak it in salt water for some few minutes, and after which you wash it thoroughly before you consume.
The washing of our hands, we shouldn't throw it away. COVID-19 has gone, everybody is just like that. So there are still some things that we must make sure that, we imbibe.
Very unfortunately, this thing is happening in the raining season, which is not good to the public. But I know the effort of His Excellency Barrister Caleb Mutfwang, by the grace of God, this issue will be tackled.
Let's also tell you that a human rights lawyer has raised concerns that Nigeria may be returning to SARS-era policing, citing growing impunity by security agencies. Mike Kebonku, a human rights lawyer, issued the warning while addressing journalists in Abuja, pointing to a pattern of unlawful detentions and arbitrary arrests by the police intelligence response team. He described the team's action as Gestapo-style policing, reminiscent of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS.
Let us be clear on this. It is not only the police that is involved in unlawful arrest and detention of citizens. Virtually all security agencies in the country do it, and they do it with impunity. We have situations where young people, wear dress are on the street with laptop or fine phone, that's handset, are just apprehended because of the mere appearance, and you stigmatize them or generalize that they are Yahoo boys. You have situations where people are carried from different localities and they are brought to Abuja and kept incommunicado. They are extorted. They are sometimes forced or extract confessional statement from them, because if you are fed up or tired with torture, you can no longer take it. And we feel that these are not the way we should go.
In East Africa, Sudan's new Prime Minister Camille Idris has arrived in Port Sudan. He's arrived to begin his official duties, marking a significant step towards restoring civilian governance. The port city, now serving as Sudan's temporary administrative capital, welcomed Idris days after his appointment by military leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. A former UN diplomat and international law expert, becomes the first civilian prime minister since Abdallah Hamdok's resignation in 2021. He's expected to hold a series of high-level meetings as part of efforts to form a transitional civilian government. Idris's leadership comes at a crucial time with the nation facing civil war, economic crisis, and a humanitarian emergency. And in South Africa, working together to end violence against children is this year's theme for Child Protection Week, observed from the 25th of May to the 1st of June. This week is commemorated in the country annually to raise awareness of the rights of children as articulated in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa and Children's Act. New Central's Mongani Sisiba looks at the right of abandoned children and the need to protect them from harm.
In a world where innocent lives are often left vulnerable, there exists a beacon of hope, a safe haven for the tiniest among the living. This is the Baby Saver box. Here, when a mother feels she cannot take care of her child, she can simply open this box and place her baby inside. No judgment, no fear, just safety. The alarm immediately alerts trained care worker who responds without delay, and the identity of the mother remains unknown, ensuring her safety and privacy.
This started 1999 where Pastor Cheryl, she used to be a pastor at Baptist Church. She noticed that around this area there were a lot of babies that were being found abandoned. Some were dead from the dustbins and all that. And then she came with a plan to say, let's just I have something just to address this issue, where they installed this baby saver on the wall so that mothers they can just place their baby or abandon their babies safely.
This Baby Saver box has become a beacon of hope for vulnerable mothers and infants alike. Every child who comes through the door of hope is checked, documented, and given the love they deserve. From here, they are blessed into a system designed to protect and nurture them.
So far, I saved 7 babies through a Baby Saver. And to me, it's important to help the kids because I love the kids and I love to give them love. People, they mustn't be scared to bring the babies if there's some challenges or some difficulties. Those kids, they're saving their lives. They're saving the baby's life. Because if they're bringing them here, it's better than to leave the child out there.
Across South Africa and the world, thousands of babies are abandoned each year, many left in dustbins, open field, or toilets, desperate for a second chance. The Door of Hope offers a safe alternative to unsafe and tragic abandonment, but despite life-saving mission, challenges always arise.
Baby abandonment is almost an epidemic in South Africa. There are no formal stats that is held by Stats SA or the government, because a baby that is found abandoned, that has died, it is categorized under concealment of birth. So there are no actual stats about baby abandonment in South Africa.
But for those who wish to give these young ones a home and love, measures hinder adoption processes. According to Baby Saver South Africa, more than 10,000 babies are abandoned each year. Yet, there are concerns about the future of these life-saving organizations. However, the Department of Social Welfare advocates mothers to drop babies at police stations or health care centers, disputing some numbers reported by private organizations.
You give birth at hospitals, you can leave your child there. You can leave your child at any Department of Social Development offices across the country. You can leave your child at any police station, because even the police have their mandate on the Children's Act. They have their national instructions.
While challenges remain, the hope persists. Somewhere out there is a child awaits a safe, loving home, and most importantly, a second chance. In Johannesburg for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Headlines this hour. Do stay with us inside of Breakfast Extra as we have more conversation about the things that really matter. We'll be right back.
And you're welcome back. Let's get started with our second hour, and this time is a big story. The Tinubu administration is once again turning to borrowing, this time on a massive scale, as it seeks the approval of the National Assembly to secure foreign loans totaling $21.5 billion and 2.2 billion euros, an equivalent of about 45 trillion naira. According to documents submitted to the National Assembly, the loans are expected to fund critical infrastructure projects. Now, you might be asking, what are these projects? Well, that's what we seek to find, and also development priorities across sectors. Now, this request forms part of the 2022-2024 borrowing plan and follows a string of borrowings already undertaken by past administrations, raising fresh concerns about Nigeria's rising debt profile. As at Q1 of 2024, Nigeria's total public debt stood at over 97 trillion naira, a figure that continues to grow despite government assurances of sustainable debt management. The presidency insists the loan is crucial for unlocking economic transformation, but economists and civil society groups are asking, at what cost?
So joining us now is Ayotunde Biodun, analyst at SBM Intelligence, and also on video is Professor Kenny Faye, development economist and public policy analyst, to help us unpack the implications of this ambitious borrowing proposal. So, if you do not mind, first off, let me start with Professor Ken. Professor Ken, good morning. Thank you very much for giving us your Sunday morning. Professor Ken, I'd like to know from your perspective what you think about this cap in hand. Once again, Nigeria going for another borrowing spree, noting how much we have as backlog. How does this affect the future of Nigeria financially and the economy?
Well, one thing I would say is that there's something that we cannot take away from this administration. That is, they have achieved the higher order of macroeconomic stability, financial system stability, some measure of price stability. And many organizations like World Bank and IMF and the Fitch ratings and all of those seem to have confirmed that they are moving in the right direction. And that also means that our credit worthiness is being enhanced. And you saw how they paid off the 3.4 billion IMF loan. And so they are now talking about expanding their capacity to borrow more. But the issues, there are so many issues around what we are borrowing money for. And secondly, the second issue is, yes, we seem to be doing well, or we have our hands on the macroeconomic area. But how about the micro? How about the citizen welfare? How about the business competitiveness? To what extent can we link both? So these are the big challenges. But when you come to the borrowing itself, what we know very little about there are many things we don't know about this borrowing. Quite unlike, there's a law, fiscal law, that governs public finance management and also loans and all that stuff. It's called Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, which has been suggested for amendment and has been going on through the two houses. The issue that I have with this is that not much is known about what we are borrowing this money for, although the general statement is that it is for infrastructure or healthcare, nationwide development program, skill acquisition and entrepreneurship and all of that. But the law requires a lot more transparency and it requires a lot more detail. The law requires more compliance with loan eligibility, because on loan eligibility, the law says only capital expenditure and human resource development. The law does not allow you to borrow money to pay salaries or for any other thing like the current expenditure. It doesn't allow you to do that. But there's a sweetener in the borrowing. You could even see a grant of 65 million that can go to pay for any other thing, right? And government earns money generated. You can use your money that you earn to service anybody, do anything you want to do. But that law does not specifically allow you to do that. Mm-hmm. Although there's some kind of amendment that was attempted just before the end of the last administration. Now, but also note that you've only mentioned 3 of the loans. There are actually more loans. $21.5 billion, there's 2.19 billion euro, there's 15 billion yen, and there's a
seem to have lost Professor Ken there with his connectivity. We're trying to have him back, but back here in the studio. The crux of this conversation. The crux of this conversation is literally about, when we talk about transparency in and of itself, and that's really what it is, transparency framework. And so let me come here into the studio to talk to Ayotunde about infrastructural development. He's raised that there is more to this loan. This administration has touted, sustainable debt management. They've been able to do this. I think that was one of their scores in their scorecard series. I think for last year, as we were rounding up last year, said they cleared pretty much almost all of the debt. Transparency 1 and 2, is this critical at this time?
All right, thank you so much for your question. Professor Ken has set the foundation for this transparency conversation. So we have legislative framework in place. So there's the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007, and also we have the Debt Management Office guidelines for external borrowing. And this document contains key provisions that agencies of the government should adhere to when we want to go and borrow. So first, and more importantly, is that you must specify the project that you want to commit these loans to. And it's clearly stated that you must utilize these loans for infrastructure development and human development projects. So first, we've not seen that there's no transparency as to the specific project these loans will be utilized for. Specifically, there's a provision in the Fiscal Responsibility Act, specifically Section 48. There's an obligation that before the federal government goes on to borrow or seek the approval of the National Assembly, you must disclose this information to Nigerians. So Nigerians, before you seek the approval of the National Assembly, must have all the full facts. You must have disclosed full fact of what you want to utilize.
Do you think the president? Do you think they've done their part in disclosing this to Nigerians currently? Are we in the open as to what these monies had been used for previously?
I would say no. As things stand, the almost $24 billion that we want to get this time around, we don't know the specifics of what project these loans are going to be committed. All we have is a pattern whereby we just hear in the media that the government has the president has forwarded a letter to the National Assembly seeking approval for loans, and then what those loans will go for remains undisclosed. So this is a major transparency.
So we're identifying that that's lacking. However, there is this other part of the borrowing system, and I'll use any average person as an example. Judith, when you go to borrow money from a bank or any institution, they would actually take a look at your credit score, see whether you are, good at returning these monies, and then they'd say, in fact, sometimes they'd even beckon on you, come and take more loan, because they see that you have a healthy income and that you're able to pay back. In the case of a country borrowing, in this case Nigeria borrowing, and it seems that we're getting where to borrow from. We have these foreign, I don't want to use the word investors, but interests that would give these monies. Does that show that Nigeria in itself is healthy when it comes to its income, its economy, at least from the perspective of these foreign institutions that want to borrow to Nigeria?
All right, so I'll say first borrowing is not necessarily bad. The biggest of economics that we have in the world today are the biggest borrowers. But what boils down is how you utilize these borrowed funds, what you utilize them to do. So narrowing down this conversation to the Nigerian context, if you look at our data sets, we really are not healthy in terms of borrowing. So first, our debt to GDP ratio is over 50%, and the internationally accepted standard is that you must not pass the range of 30%. So that shows that in terms of being healthy, we're not so healthy. Then when we also factor debt to revenue ratio, reports say we're between 90% to 130%. So what we just basically have is a narrative whereby any money that comes into the government right now, we're using them to service interest payment or principal payment, depending on how we structure that loans. So if you look at those two key major sets, the debt to GDP ratio and debt to revenue ratio, we are way beyond the internationally accepted.
What did we just finish paying? Only just
the IMF.
The IMF loans.
That's one.
Now, these loans often. I'm sorry, Judith. I should let you ask the question.
Let me come to Professor Ken. If we have Professor Ken back on. Professor, you are a development economist, and so one has to ask you. Unfortunately, he's not. We've lost him. We're trying to secure our reconnection back with Professor Ken. Ife is a development analyst and development economist and a public policy analyst. Nazina.
Okay, so good. Now I get the chance to ask you this question. So these borrowings or these monies that we get actually sometimes come with other, incentives, or at least they have certain effects on our whether maybe reforms or cultures. Sometimes even they take a poke at certain beliefs in religion. So I'm asking, at what end are we having these? Are we borrowing these amounts? Is it just the amounts we're borrowing, or are there other things underneath, maybe fine prints that we don't know about that would have to adhere to be able to get these monies?
So that's a big possibility that there are other strings attached. But the fact remains that there's a limit to the information we have to really assess the situation. So again, when you have not solved that transparency issue, we cannot go further to probe. So as things stand, all we just know is about $24 billion is what we want to borrow at this time. We don't know the extra strings that are attached to it. So it's possible because what I think the Nigerian government is enjoying now is the benefit of the posturing we've done over the last 2 years, trying to show to the world that we are reform-oriented.
Have we been successful?
To an extent, yeah. I mean, Tinubu took those hard decisions that previous administration shied away from. Taking out the unsustainable fuel subsidy regime, and also doing our market exchange rate reforms. So those have really pushed to investors that we might be on the right track.
So Tunde, yeah, I have to ask this, and now that we're talking about this credibility and international markets and what it means for our Nigeria's fiscal discipline, I also do have to ask about our debt sustainability strategy. This administration claims that they have it. Do we have it?
To the best of my knowledge, I'm not so sure we do. Again, it's not publicly available. What we have right now are DMO, so the Debt Management Office, as a guideline to ensure that we continue to maintain. But we see that we were split out. We're not sticking with the provisions of those guidelines, so that's a problem.
What does it mean for us to have, I mean, from what Professor was saying, he said, because we only outlined 2, but he says there is more loans that we are reaching out to get, right? And one has to be concerned about the sectors that these loans are going to. Looking at our history and our sectors and all the critical sectors and human development capital that they claim they want to do we need all that money to do that?
So if we, again, back to the data, we do need that money. So reports have shown that annually, Nigeria needs at least $100 billion to attend to our infrastructural deficit. So again, it shows that for the longest term, we need that continual pipeline of resources to come in so that we can improve the economy and then improve the welfare and lives of Nigerians. So yes, we need those resources. But again, you need more than those resources. You need a political will to push sure that when you get these resources, you're going to utilize them to the best available means to ensure that. So we've not really seen that because again, we don't have full disclosure of what those resources are going to be used for. So when you don't have full disclosure, it gives room for manipulation. So we could get that $24 billion and then we don't really know how to track. We don't know what metrics to look out for to say, oh, these loans have really been utilized for what they were gotten for. So I think we need to apply more pressure on government. So I've seen that this information about we borrowing has aroused a lot of civil society.
It has indeed. A lot of people are talking about the amount. Is this the largest that we would be borrowing? I doubt.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. But in terms of the value, however, have things changed? Are we borrowing these monies and would it take care of the projects that it needs to, or have the prices of these projects themselves gone up? That's perhaps maybe mandated, maybe why the amount we're borrowing. 45 trillion naira, 21.5 billion dollars, 2.2 billion euros. It's quite a lot.
You said something about billion yens as well?
Yeah, and yes, exactly. So the value of these monies that we're borrowing, do you agree that there might be a little bit of, what's it called, in there, regarding what they are meant for when it comes to the project they're supposed to service?
So if I tie that back to a credit report that shows our infrastructural deficit and how we need $100 billion annually to attend to that. So you say 21.4 just covers about 20% of that. So
just?
Yeah, in terms of the need, and that's like a little chunk of what Nigeria needs. So that borrowing is needed. Especially when you consider the fact that we have a deficit in our budget of about 13 trillion naira. So
Right.
we need money to come in.
13, why not borrow 13? Why borrow 45? You know, I mean, the math isn't mathing.
Well, the math is not mathing because we don't have full disclosure. And again, if we had had information as to what they want to utilize those resources to do, then we can now really assess and say, oh, does this project really worth this amount of value and be quoted for it?
Right. So alternatives, right? And hopefully, you know, you can aid me with this. If we make enough money, and by making money, I mean that our IGR, internally generated revenue, plus, you know, a foreign investment, foreign direct investment, FDRs that come into the country, we've seen that slowly decline, or is it good enough? Is it up to par that we can be rest assured that if we're taking the 45 trillion naira from all of these loans that we're taking from different countries to supplement the budget, that we can be able to repay that with our IGR and our FDR? That's one part of it. But if it's not, what then can we do? What's the alternative as opposed to borrowing 45 trillion naira lump sum?
All right, so your first question on internally generated revenue. So one would have expected that the current tax reforms would have gotten more attention than it currently had, because the intention was for those reforms to increase how much we generate internally. But somehow we've not seen a full display of political will for those tax reforms to come through. The last information is just about 2 out of 4 bills have been passed. So that's, we've not had full credit in that area. So again, we're not, I don't know, the posture is not really full. It's a thing of where you need to really get one aspect of your governance rights so as to posture to the international market and investors that you're really serious about utilizing borrowed funds. Also need to flag that the Tinubu administration has been creative in terms of how it generates funds, in terms of borrowing. So unlike the Buhari tenure that relied really on raise means from the CBN, the Tinubu administration have been going around to do a lot of Euro bonds.
It's more focused on relationships.
Yeah, leveraging Western relationships, even the Chinese, because we see China dropping about 15 billion years this time around. So in terms of sustainability, we have done away with ways and means to an extent, because that really impacted our local economy in terms of skyrocketing inflation, because we're just printing naira basically. So the Tinubu government is trying not to do that. I mean, the posture not to do that and trying to utilize multilateral organizations and institutional investors who are interested.
So how long do you think the National Assembly will take before they grant this request? Do you think we're far from that, or it's going to be?
So the National Assembly gave their respective committees 2 weeks to get the reports and get back to the House before they make a decision. But I think if we have increased pressure from the civil society organization, because I've seen some of these guys call for a public hearing on these loans, and that could cause a delay. And I think it's important for us to have that public hearing. It's a legislative requirement in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Nigerians need to have full disclosure of what these resources will be used for.
I fear that the transparency framework will be out through the door, even though the law stipulates that there must be transparency in these loans and how they are being implemented. What a shame. Ayotunde, it's lovely having you join us as always, and just giving us a bit of insight. Ayotunde here is an analyst, senior analyst with SBM Intelligence. A bit of insight following as the presidency seeks the National Assembly's approval for a 45 trillion naira loan. Let's go on a short break, shall we, while we ruminate over the 45 trillion loan.
Hopefully we'll be reminiscing about it.
And when we come back this time, we will be dissecting our education sector. So many adjectives. Learn that. I'll see you after the break. Stay with us.
And you're welcome back again. Now, Nigeria's education sector is once again under intense scrutiny following a series of embarrassing and troubling disruptions to the 2025 UTME and WAEC examinations. From the Joint Admission and Matriculations Board admitting to errors in thousands of UTME results, forcing over 370,000 students to retake the exams, to the West Africa Examinations Councils conducting late-night exams in some centers and cases of technical glitches and mismanagement. It has been a turbulent season for students, parents, and also integrity on the system. The Nigerian Bar Association has even waded in, calling for sanctions against WAEC and JAMB officials, citing incompetence, trauma to students, and long-term damage to the credibility of national examinations. The ripple effects of these incidents have sparked broader conversations about the quality, structure, and future of education in Nigeria, especially at a time when confidence in public institutions is waning.
And so joining us now is Dr. Joy Issa, an experienced educationist and the president of the Issa School of Education. She spent years in policy engagement and curriculum reform, and she joins us now to give or provide critical insight into this growing crisis. Doctor, welcome. I must say that this conversation is needed. Barely weeks after the shamble of JAMB's mass failure with the UTME, over 370,000 UTME candidates are asked to retake exams due to systemic errors. We're back here again with WAEC examinations and students having to write in darkness, in the dark of night, rather in the following morning. What does this say about, the institutional failures of our education sector? Are we seeing it fall before our eyes?
It's really sad that we're here again. The government knows what to do, private sector knows what to do. Supposedly, we're very intelligent people in Nigeria, and we have systems in place to lead, to oversee, student engagement, to oversee assessments, and yet we keep finding ourselves in this position where our students are, functioning as if we're still in the 19th century or the 20th century. It's unbelievable that our children are required to take assessments in the dark. And if you saw some of those videos, they're all scrunched, bunched up together. How on earth are they not supposed to cheat? How on earth are they not supposed to, how are they supposed to survive? So it's almost like we, the adults, are setting up our children for failure. We're doing them a disservice, and we expect them to, uphold righteousness and have their moral compasses all pointing due north. We, the adults, we, the people in positions of power, must take responsibility for this. It's just terrible. I don't think it could ever happen in any other country, anywhere in the world. Where there are challenges with infrastructure, we then need to prepare. How can you ask children, by the way, no one's talking about the fact that they were there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 12 midnight. What did they eat? What did they drink? So if someone has low blood sugar, if someone is feeling dehydrated, are they supposed to perform optimally? Then again, we will have children with poor results. And we're wondering why they can't get into our universities, they can't get into our schools. We really need to pause and say, look, are we ready to support our children? Or are we just, functioning like, what do you call them? Those rodents in the trundle wheel, just going round and round and round and round and round.
Hamsters.
We really must do better by our children.
Dr. Issa, I want to tell a story, which I think you might know about, from South Africa. The South African instance here is that during apartheid, there was no equal opportunity for black students to go to school. This caused an imbalance in their education, where after they had reached ages where they were eligible to have jobs, they couldn't find jobs because they were not as educated as the average white South African, or even foreigners in most cases, Nigerians who came into South Africa. This caused what we hear in most cases as xenophobia, because they felt that Nigerians and other nationalities were taking their jobs, not noting that they were ill-prepared, less educated for these jobs that they wanted to take. Now, this is a situation that's caused by the system there in South Africa from years from before, where apartheid was responsible. In this case in Nigeria, although it is not absolutely similar, we see a situation where our education system seems to be harming our children year after year. And this year is the biggest example, and very embarrassingly so. Down the line, what do we see these instances we're experiencing now? How do we see them affecting our children in the future when it comes to the opportunities that they may be presented with?
For us in Nigeria, it's our challenge is the divide between the children in the public school system and the children in the private school system. The divide continues to grow and increase. I remember in university, that I should have graduated in 1994, but because of strike and, strike action and etc., industrial action as it was called, I graduated in 1995. These days, a number of parents prefer to send their children to private universities, private schools, because they don't go off. There's consistency, and then there's an assurance of the quality of the education that the children will get. Scale it down to secondary school, even to primary school level, to nursery school. We're aware that our nursery school curriculum, as I will always talk about, does not exist formally. And so the private sector has outsourced that and has imported curricula from the US, from the UK, and pull this together to teach the children. So there is a big divide. There's a serious dichotomy between children who go to private schools and children who go to public schools in Nigeria. Having said that, we have seen over the years that it is the children who go to the public school system that come back and get into grassroots politics and get into community leadership and things like that. What do we expect them to deliver? What is the quality of engagement? What is the quality of thought that is put into systemic governance when at the foundation level we have not empowered these children to lead? We haven't taught them to think. We haven't taught them to solve problems. Therein lies our challenge. Over and over again, we see governments who have transformed their populace with good quality education, fixing the curriculum, working on teacher training, and scaling up. So yes, for us, it's not xenophobia, but I don't know what to call it, education phobia, because we have this big divide. It's incredible. A lot of children in the public school system, I beg your pardon, are leaving primary school not able to read. By age 10, 11, cannot read. In the private schools, they're reading at age 3, age 4. Reading simple words and all of that. So we have to, as a generation, take responsibility for this divide and bridge it. Otherwise, we're really setting up ourselves for major, major challenges in the next 10, 15 years.
Right. I mean, Doctor, you've set the premise for my next question, right? And the gentleman that just left the studio in our last interview, I was asking him about his time in university and how it's changed. And what he said really was technology has done, extremely well, but also there's information overload as well, which we're going to get into. We've seen JAMB try to adopt, technology into the examination process. They are the custodian of the matriculation exams for all of the universities here in Nigeria, but they have not been able to adopt technology brilliantly well, or even fair enough to be able to do this. There's still systemic errors that happens. There's WAEC, even though it's a written examination, there's still other factors that they're trying to make, adopt the technological part of it, and they failed completely. What more our curriculum and our students themselves to prepare them for the real world and an ever-changing world that is changing so fast with AI and everything else. If you're saying here that the public students are graduating, public education students are graduating without being able to read and write brilliantly or proficiently, how are we preparing our workforce for the future? But really about these bodies who are the custodians of our education sector.
Again, these bodies have to take responsibility, but the bodies do not work in isolation. The bodies work within a community. When we look at technological, the adoption of technology in our schools, let's call it that way, the access again is not equitable. We have schools, even in big metropolitan cities like Lagos, where children are learning about computers theoretically, because there's no functioning computer in the school. These are public schools, even in a big city. In private schools, in some of the higher end private schools, for example, children come to school with their computers. So a child who has had a computer from age 5, age 6, and has been working with that device is more likely to complete their JAMB exam successfully than one who only saw a computer on a picture and handled the computer maybe once per month for their entire school time. So we have to step back and think, what are we doing? JAMB, before the children come to you, what is happening to them in the secondary schools and how have they been prepared to engage? If you think about technology, for example, a lot of those children have not used a computer, personal device. And then all of a sudden, with this high pressure, high stakes exam, you want me to use a computer to answer these questions? Where do I click? Where is ending? Where is refresh? Where is cancel? Where is backspace? They have no idea. So the adoption of technology needs to be systemic. You don't just bring it at the exam level. Absolutely not. That already puts the children that are disadvantaged at a further disadvantage. And then those that have access, you have given them an advantage. So we can't keep doing this to our children. Where the children don't have access, differentiate the exam. Why can't some of them still use, the paper-based exams like before? And where they have access, do that. That is when you're saying, okay, we're helping you. We want to know what you really know, what you can do, and we want to provide that entry, that gate for you into schools. Access is not equitable. Technology is not available to everyone. And so standardizing an exam based on technology already sets a lot of children back, and we can't keep doing that.
Well, Dr. Joy, I think the UTMEs actually set 2 exams. They set one for the candidates and then they set one for themselves. If we take a look at it, they've actually absolutely failed when it comes to what they sat for, when it comes to the technology they intended to use and all of that. So we have their scorecard on that. Now, where does the responsibility lie now if the gatekeepers themselves are failing? Are we looking at a situation perhaps where the UTMEs or JAMB itself is no longer the gatekeeper, where it is scrapped? Do we put this responsibility on the universities, the places of entry? Perhaps maybe we focus on their entry examinations. I'm sure they have some of these going on now, but the UTMEs are still the one sure way of getting an across-board examination of every single student that's going into the tertiary institution. But is it still relevant at this point? Do we look at the institutions now and say, the ball now stops with you, go ahead, let's see what entry exams with you is going to be like?
That is my absolute recommendation. Every university, come up with your entry criteria, because at the end of the day, the university rankings depend on the quality of their graduates. So if a university's time, energy, and effort into employing the right faculty, providing the right resources, making sure that children have access to good quality education, they should create their own entry gateways, as you have put it.
I mean, they already have the post-UTME examinations that they do for candidates who already passed the exams, go in, they do the post-UTME, and they set their own scorecard for all the departments.
Exactly. So why don't we just remove this almighty pressure of UTME? I mean, you have children writing JAMB 3-4 times. And why are they writing JAMB 3-4 times? Can we even go there? Because they are from a certain state that is ranked higher than another state. And so someone from maybe a state in the south has to take a UTME 3-4 times because his or her cutoff score is not high enough for entry into maybe the particular university, but someone from maybe other states will have a much lower score and get entry and access. Again, can we really look at this? I know at a certain point in time, that was a useful way to sort of decentralize, entry into schools, be considerate of different literacy levels, etc. But for the private universities, come on, the children pay their fees. So why do they still have to use JAMB as the entry criteria? Let them set their own assessments. That's what the private schools are doing, and it has really made life easier. I know there will be challenges, but we cannot continue to rely on a failing system. And all of us will sit back and fail our children. I think the private universities, the private schools, this is the time to rise up and put our foot down. There are associations that can rise up and say, you know what, for the universities that belong to this association, let's do this.
WAEC is a completely different conversation. As we're talking about JAMB, let's bring WAEC into this discussion, right? Years, they've been doing this for years. They are the custodian of the examinations for senior secondary school into universities. For West Africa, this incident that happened where the children had to wait from 9 a.m. all the way down to midnight to write their examinations, one has to ask, is this a Nigeria problem? Or is it a West African issue? And should WAEC be on the chopping block at this point?
It's primarily a Nigerian issue.
I was hoping it was not. I was hoping it was not.
Unfortunately, it is our infrastructure, it is our systems, because this is just a matter of tools. So we're not saying the exam portal failed. We're saying there's no light. We're not saying the exam portal was inaccessible. There was no internet. Those are our issues. And if we don't fix our infrastructural issues, then we shouldn't be upset that our children want to japa and go to Ghana and go to other places to go to school. You'll be amazed at the number of Nigerian children going to school in Lowe, just next door, and in Ghana, to other countries across West Africa, instead of going to our schools. It's incredible. And we're supposed to be the giant of Africa. I think we should change our name.
Ooh.
I don't know what it should be, but
no, I'm still giant too. I'm still giant too.
You came for all of us.
Well, let's say in education, we're not the giants. Well, when we go abroad, we thrive, we excel. The number of Nigerian children who are head boy, head girl in secondary schools abroad, who are head of this department, head of that department, in universities, in academia is incredible. What is happening internally? Why do I have to go abroad to become HOD somewhere? Why do I have to go up to thrive? Because there's the opportunity for somebody who thinks differently, who will not cram on Paul.
Okay.
Mazzino, just a sec.
Go ahead,
I wanted to. You have been developing curriculums, teaching. You have a school, a college of education, pretty much just teaching teachers as well. And so one has to ask about our curriculum. Is the conversation back on board at the national level when it comes to our curriculum and the ever-changing tides with technology?
Well, to be fair, it is our current Minister of Education invited some of us private sector stakeholders. I went representing APEN, the Association of Private Educators in Nigeria. I happened to be on the advocacy committee. And the minister invited about 10 or 12 private sector players to come in and have a conversation around the curriculum. And I remember the NERDC chair was there. And yes, there is a future review planned. However, the problem is the curriculum has already been reviewed by the committee and basically is done. Where was like the minister said, why did we not invite the private sector into this discourse? Because in some states, 70% of our children are trained in the private schools, not in the public schools. So if that is the case, what are we doing for those teaching? The teachers who are graduating from these NCEs and these colleges. Are we bringing out teachers that can cope with this higher standard of education? Or are we graduating teachers based on the old, like I like to say, 1945 curriculum for the teacher training institutes? And he called out NTI, he called out a lot of the institutes saying, you guys are not doing what you're supposed to be doing to upgrade, which is why the private sector keeps outsourcing training. We keep going abroad to train and come back. We keep, developing our own things. But majority of the initial teacher training still lies with the national and state and federal colleges of education. If that is not fixed, again, I say, we will keep on perpetuating this ineptitude. I like to say that because for me, that's the best way to describe what we're doing. You cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again. We all know what that equates to. And yet here we are, still doing the same thing. We have to think differently. So the the Ministry of Education has reached out and is trying to find, opportunities to collaborate to make these things happen. It's a slow moving wheel. And like one former president said, I used to think governance was like, a speedboat, you just turn it. But I realized Governance is like moving a super yacht. If you turn it too quickly, you're going to throw some people off. So you have to turn it really. My challenge is I don't think anybody has started turning. We're just having all these symposia and talking about things. I don't see any concrete forward movement. And I don't think the government can spearhead it. I do think that the private sector, with strategic partnerships, will spearhead innovation and transformation of education in this country.
Right. But
more of us need to talk and collaborate on this.
Dr. Joy, my own fear is that as private sector is coming in, they democratize education, right? Because when the private sector comes in, they are still profit-making, ventures, and they still have to make money. They are building schools that are paying in dollars and pounds. I don't understand, and this just erodes public trust in our education system. And so, what's left for the common man, and what's left for our future of the nation? Because the middle class is slowly dwindling, the lower class is expanding. A dollar is one to. Doctor, thank you for coming.
This is why I'm talking about partnerships. This is why I talk about partnerships. We need more of these private schools to adopt the public schools. And that's one of the things we propose, APEN proposed to the minister, to say, look, can you allow us work? Because some of these private schools, a simple example, the private school is starting in a house. Meanwhile, there's a public school down the road that has a field, has big space and all. If you allow this strategic partnership, then from some of the funds raised in the private school, they train the teachers in the public school, they leverage some of their infrastructure, and in that collaborative way, there is improvement. All the children improve. But I promise you, to send a pack of biscuits to a public school, to do anything, send books, they can't just accept things. It has to go to district head, and then the district one head has to talk to the supervisor, and supervisor has to go to the ministry and mission. It's incredible, the bureaucracy.
Yeah, and again, it's just Nigeria, standard Nigeria, bureaucracy and red tape is just insane. Doctor, I wish there was enough time for us to continue, but we'll continue to have these discussions as much as we can. Education is one of the key priorities here at Breakfast Extra, and we always appreciate you every single time you take up on that invitation. Thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Joy Issa is an education is joining us live from Abuja. Let's go to a short break. Mazino's on standby to bring you Breakfast Headlines. Stay with us.
And welcome for Breakfast Headlines again. We begin in West Africa, where tragedy has struck the sports community in Nigeria as at least 21 members of Team Kano, who recently represented the state at the 22nd National Sports Festival, have lost their lives in a devastating bus crash. A fatal accident occurring on Saturday at the Dakamsale Bridge in Kura local government area of Kano State. The team was en route back to Kano from the festival, which was held in Abeokuta, the capital of Ogun State. Confirming the heartbreaking incident, Chairman of the Kano State Sports Commission, Umar Fage, said the bus was carrying 30 passengers when it plunged off the bridge. 19 athletes died at the scene, while 2 others later succumbed to their injuries. Fage added that several other passengers sustained varying degrees of injuries and are currently receiving medical attention.
ta hau ta kan gadan nan shikenan sai ta fado yawwa ni lokacin nan ina can tsallake kurin na ga faduwar ta nan kowa ya daidai wallahi da muka zo gurin muka ɗibi mutane muka tattara su guri ɗaya kuma gaskiya ba mun ciro mutum 15 yawwa masu wanda suka mutu an tafi hanya mutum 3 sun sake mutuwa yawwa to yanzu kuma bayan an tafi asibitin sun sake gama mutum 3 sun sake mutuwa.
Mu dai muna cikin tafiya a mota, to bayan mun to haka kawai Allah ya afko wannan mota kawai ke cefe ta zo ta hau kan wannan gada ta hado haka. To daga haka bayan da haka muna gurin mu muka fara fito da wannan mutane, to daga ciki wani ina da rai har ya gaya mana bacci ne ya ɗebi wannan bawan Allah. Bayan bacci ya ɗebe shi ina cikin tafiya magagi kawai zo ya afko. To a haka mun fito da mutane matattu ma mun fito da kaman guda 20 da kusan ɗaya ma wanda suka rasu. Kuma bayan da haka an sake gaya mana cewa mutum 3 sun rasa asibiti tukuna. Banda marasa lafiyar da muka dingi zubawa a mota muna kaiwa.
Wani asibiti aka yi?
Da farko mun kai wasu asibitin Kura. To daga nan kuma an sake yi musu abin rata an huce da su Kano asibitin Murtala.
Now let's turn our attention to another developing tragedy in Niger State, where the death toll from a catastrophic flood continues to climb. Authorities now confirm over 150 lives lost and thousands displaced in Mokwa local government area. According to state authorities, the disaster struck late on Wednesday night, submerging homes and forcing over 3,000 residents to flee. Deputy Governor Yakubu Gabar confirmed the scale of the devastation, describing the event as one of the deadliest in the state's recent history. So far, at least 44 victims were laid to rest on Friday, following the earlier burial of 31 others recovered earlier in the week. Now also, let's tell you that a human rights lawyer has raised concerns that Nigeria may be returning to SARS-era policing, citing growing impunity by security agencies. Mike Kibonku, a human rights lawyer, issued the warning while addressing journalists in Abuja, pointing to a pattern of unlawful detentions and arbitrary arrests by the Police Intelligence Response Team, the IRT. He describes the team's actions as Gestapo-like policing, reminiscent of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS.
Let us be clear on this. It is not only the police that is involved in unlawful arrest and detention of citizens. Virtually all security agencies in the country do it, and they do it with impunity. We have situations where people, young people, wear dress on the street with laptop or fine phone, that's handset, are just apprehended because of the mere appearance, and you stigmatize them or generalize that they are Yahoo boys. You have situations where people are carried from different locality and they are brought to Abuja and kept incommunicado. They are extorted, they are sometimes forced or extract confessional statement from them, because if you are fed up or tired with torture, you can no longer take it. And we feel that these are not the way we should go.
Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko has called for deeper relationship and regional solidarity during his official visit to Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Speaking after high-level talks with Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and Prime Minister Robert Bourgué Mambe, Sonko emphasized the need to strengthen ties among West African nations. His appeal comes amid growing insecurity across the Sahel, where countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are battling already deadly jihadist insurgencies that have claimed tens of thousands of lives and now threaten to destabilize coastal nations.
Nous avons également échangé de la situation de la sous-région, qui, comme vous le savez, est confrontée à plusieurs défis. Le défi le plus important, c'est le défi sécuritaire, évidemment, qui aujourd'hui frappe certains de nos États, mais qui menace tous les autres États, le Sénégal et la Côte d'Ivoire compris. Nous avons largement échangé sur les voies et moyens de sortir de cette situation, sur les voies et moyens aussi de consolider les ensembles que nous avons sous-régionaux, de travailler à renforcer la fraternité entre tous les États et tous les pays de ces ensembles sous-régionaux. Nous sommes convaincus que le progrès qui est appelé par nos peuples et le développement qui est souhaité ne peut pas être un développement isolé.
In East Africa, Sudan's new Prime Minister Camille Idris has arrived in Port Sudan to begin his official duties, marking a significant step towards restoring civilian governance. The port city, now serving as Sudan's temporary administrative capital, welcomed Idris days after his appointment by military leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Idris, a former U.S. diplomat and international law expert, becomes the first civilian prime minister since Abdullah Hamdok's resignation in 2021. He's expected to hold a series of high-level meetings as part of efforts to reform, or rather to form, a transitional civilian government. Idris's leadership comes at a crucial time, with the nation facing civil war, economic crisis, and a humanitarian emergency. And that's all inside the headlines for this hour. Do stay with us. It's the final hour for Breakfast Extra, and we've got more inside of wellness and also one big story to go. Stay with us. So at the top of the last hour, we decided to bring you the dailies for this morning. We were such in a hurry to get into the topics for today that we actually put them aside. But here we are, all taking it back. Let's let you know what's on the front pages of the dailies as you reach out to take them maybe after church service. So we're going to be starting from one of Nigeria's
Both of you
courts.
think the churches have closed?
Say again, the churches have closed? Yeah, I wouldn't know, so.
Yes, I said both of you think the churches have closed. I mean, some have.
Do they?
You know what I mean?
This is what, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, capitalism has gotten into. No, don't make me do this. Let's keep going.
We'll both definitely get into trouble. Let's start with the Sunday Punch for you, shall we? Sunday Punch has these headlines: Ukraine war, Russian drone scheme for Nigerian sparks opera. Now that's very interesting. We are not aware, says Foreign Ministry, Ukraine warns of deadly consequences. To the side of that big story for that front page for Sunday Punch, be patient with me, Tinubu begs Nigerians. We talked about that inside of his half-year term speech. Remember, he said that don't worry, it'll soon trickle down to you. All the monies we're saving from petrol subsidy, all the reforms that we're putting in place. But then again, I do say that perhaps maybe we just don't know about it much, and that's why Nigerians have a certain disconnect with what this administration is doing, because there are certain gains, there are certain positives that we are not taking into account. Maybe there needs to be a better communication between the presidency and Nigerians, or government rather, and Nigerians. Reps seek 7-year jail for workplace bribery. Okay. And FRSC blames speeding for death of 21 Kano athletes. I'm going to not talk too much about that, but there might be reason to that claim. But let's just mourn for the time being before we go into the details, shall we?
Oh, yes,
Wouldn't you agree, Judith?
I do 100. We'll move away from the Sunday Punch and move on to our next paper for today as we pull it up for you on the screen. And that will be, there we go, it's the Guardian Post all the way to Kenya. Are we taking that one?
Perhaps we take a Nigerian one before we move on to the Guardian Post.
And that will be the Nation then. We'll move on to the Nation as EFCC slams MFLA with fresh charges over 753 Abuja housing units. You can find that story on page 2. Can I just say, please, can you put the camera on me for a second? Okay, let's just say this. You have punished him enough.
Oh. I didn't see that coming.
Go. I get it. I know. I understand. But the very ethos of our culture and our people and our communities is that we're a religious people, and every religion that we have is situated, or it relies on forgiveness. The very tenet of all of our religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, there's forgiveness there. I know that his implementations, or rather his policies when he was governor, cost lives and cost a pandemonium on a nationwide scale, but he was going on a directive of one man that his head is not on the chopping block, and now he's being scapegoated. Forgive him.
Oh, Judith, I beg to differ. How do you then deter others from doing the same thing? If we're going to keep forgiving people who have mortgaged our wealth, our future, look at education, what's going on. Are we going to let that slide?
So
do you know the difference in education is going to cause between?
So you agree it's being scapegoated?
I don't want to say I agree. I just think that what is necessary has to be done. And if I have to deter others from doing something bad, I'll make an example. Not a scapegoat, but I will. They're two different things. An example is different from a scapegoat. A scapegoat might not necessarily need all that not attention.
Mazio, I know what they're telling me. Because it was this same administration, right? It's the same from the last one. It's all APC. That president was, and he kept saying it. The person, he said, the
he was under orders.
Instructed. He was instructed to do it.
Who? Let's get the names out.
Now.
Let's get let's investigate. Let's climb up. And if anybody is found culpable, let's drag them back in.
It's not
his problem at the end of the day. It's the system. If they're going to investigate and try people for the wrongs that they've done, and they should all be included.
And the reasons why it was implemented at the time.
This is not supposed to happen, by the way.
Yeah,
it's
of
just,
course.
And
the reason why it was that cashless policy and that change of the naira at the time, the redesign of the naira, why it was supposed to happen was for, they started 3 reasons. Number one was vote buying.
Mm-hmm.
That was the number one reason. Number two was to proliferate the cashless policy.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, we said too much cash was in circulation, and so they needed to mop up the naira, right? Mm-hmm. Which takes us back to number two. That was the policies that was implemented under the APC administration with the former general head of state and former president Muhammadu Buhari.
Mm-hmm.
That was his implementation, and he was solidly behind it and said multiple times on the podium and every press briefing that was his instructions.
So you want to call him in for?
Do you want to call him in? Because I'm just saying, it's the justice system. Call everybody. Call everybody in. And that's what I'm just saying, because at this point, man.
If you do want to continue, what paper will you at this point? My apologies.
I love it. Please,
you are on a nation, actually. I will not interrupt you again for fear that we'll go into another rabbit hole. So you were saying about the nation.
So away from that, you can find us around page 2, by the way. Tinubu governors mourn as 21 Kano athletes officials die in crash. Victims returning home from just concluded National Sports Festival. You can find the story on page 4. Niger flood disaster. Tinubu mobilizes emergency response. Death toll hits 150. Collapsed bridge raises fears of food price hike ahead of Salah. Stranded passengers recount ordeal. I mean, my heart goes out to the residents of Mokwa just days ahead of a celebration of Salah festival that, or rather a celebration that everyone's looking forward to, and just to die leading to that. It's just like a thief in the night, the way the floods came.
Did you see the videos of the floods? It did not look like the north. These were waters that you could say this is a river. It was big.
It was big, yeah. There, right next to it, PSG win UEFA Champions League thrash. Enter 5-0. This was one for the books because everyone was shocked by it. Police bomb over alleged suit against retired AIGs. Others. Smear campaign against AIG won't stop police reforms. CASA, you can find that story on page 7. President commissions first section of Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway. Others. Flags of new projects nationwide once federal government would enforce setbacks. Right next to it, MSM Group targets multi-billion-dollar investment in cement, plans to rival Dangote. Others, you can find that story on page 8. ICE Gurugu power plant as well. No? That's it for the nation there.
Sunday Tribune is next. Like it or not, Atiku El-Rufai tackled Tinubu on rising poverty. His government has weaponized policy, says Atiku. Current situation, biggest trouble since 1914. El-Rufai, many elites are out of touch with situation of poverty, says Sanusi. Now I ask, what alternative would have been best? If you were in power, what would you have done different? Would we still be in suffering or not? Questions that are becoming rhetoric. Why I don't accept chieftaincy titles. This is by Makinde. 2 years of Tinubu, Nigerians pass verdict, want improvement in living conditions, decry rising poverty levels. Find that read on page 9 and 10 by notable Nigerians in the entertainment space. MSM to invest multi-billion-dollar in Nigeria's cement power sector, plans to acquire Geregu power plant, and Mokwa flood tragedy, 151 bodies recovered, buried. 3,018 people displaced, says the governor, and 3 bridges, 2 roads washed away. Tinubu calls, others express sadness. That's all the dailies we can take this morning, the front pages at least. Thank you very much for joining us, even while later inside of the show.
Right. Let's switch gears, shall we? Because Mazina's going to go to the other side and give you strips.
Oh, yeah.
Fun times.
I should do that.
Yeah, you ready? All right, let's do it.
Let's do
Stay with
strips
us.
now. Thank you very much. It's time for the strips. It's my best part of the show. Yay! Now, Judith, we have very interesting strips today, but they all have a common thread. They all seem to be carrying a common thread. That just gives you an idea as to what people are thinking generally today, and it's all about themselves, self-preservation, what's happening with the political elite, and how we seem to be the ones that are carrying them. And I mean everybody who's not in politics. But we'll let the strips tell in picture and color. Let's start with our very first one. Very interestingly, I'm going to need you to also help me analyze some of these, okay?
I got you.
Let's put up some of the strips that we identified from last week that were very entertaining and things that we thought, regarding the sale of the PHC. And this is not really the one I'm very excited about, but on off, you can see the FG there, auctioning off our, what's it called? As a matter of fact, by the way, we're still testing it though, but still, it's for sale and the discos can sell whatever it is that we're giving. I'm not particularly interested in the power system right now, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
Most Nigerians, Judith, are switching to alternative sources of energy. And only lately I've begun to take it very seriously regarding how I can no longer rely on the federal government for my electricity because of how epileptic it has become. And I remember the time when I used to grow up with at least, let me say 10 hours of light during the day. These days, it's worse than that. I'm embarrassed to tell you what rubber band I'm on. But I'm taking myself off the grid finally. And I'll have to worry about these guys no more. What are you doing? What's your take?
Look, this picture, this editorial, it nicely depicts what's wrong with our power sector and what can be done and have been refused to happen, and it's simply the federal government of Nigeria, right? Just sitting down there, getting all this money and just being there instead of providing real solutions. I mean, look at that character. I don't know who that character is. I don't know if he's painted
it's not connected. That's the thing.
You know what I mean? Like you can just say he was holding it back from developing. Just imagine, Mazino. Imagine if the entirety of this country had power supply that was constant. I would have fresh cauliflower, right, and broccolis, right, and vegetables from Plateau State. I would have electricity train, trams. Do you have any clue
how
what
that
this
will affect
country will become?
transportation? We would look more toward renewable energy for even transportation, electric cars, but we don't even have the electricity. Right. Have you been noticing the CNG lines at the fueling station? They're getting longer and longer. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because people are adopting it more. It's a bad thing because there's no infrastructure to, help
Always
service
the federal
the
government.
people.
And the government says, we're always blaming them. You're always blaming them. What about the people? Stop gaslighting us. It's you. I mean, right?
Let's move on to our next strip for today. Okay, next strip for today. Okay, there we go. Good. Election promises, half-year term. Remember, was it on Wednesday? And the president gave his speech, in which he reiterated, subsidy is gone, and everybody clapped, yay, and everything like that. Yeah. Okay. There's still another picture I would like to show you. In any case, 2 years in office. He's still got these baggage of promises not yet given to the people. We haven't actualized them. We're still waiting for this renewed hope. And like I said in my monologue, it's not that we don't believe in it. Maybe we don't know much about it. Maybe we don't understand and aren't on the same train. Perhaps maybe if there was communication between the elite, political elite, and regular Nigerians would have an idea. But it still remains this way for most of Nigerians. This is how we see what's going on right now, 2 years in to the administration. Real quick, say little about this, but let's move on to the next one, which I think you might have plenty to talk about. Now the coalition. Judith, do you want to tell me right off the bat what you think about this picture here? The roadblock, the specific names on that bus.
Everyone knows my eyesight is shitty, so there we go.
Go
Said
on.
it finally. So there's, guys, you just have to put it big because I cannot see.
No,
okay?
I'll tell you.
Cool.
It says Obi Atiku El Rufai on that one, and that's the Coalition Express. And these are all the roadblocks. I may help you. I could give you my glasses. Who will step down for who? Lack of support from governors, defection to APC, no independent financiers, infiltration by ruling party, mistrust by opposition leaders, and all the way there is 2027. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
2027.
All right.
So
and then
these
the
are all
coalition
the
is the boss, and then on it is Atiku, El Rufai, and Obi. Very unlikely opponents, I will say. Very unlikely individuals. Everybody with their own, priorities and their, what their core is. There's Obi, who seems like a sincere politician. The current vice president described him as a good man, but good men are not good leaders. They don't rule, And then there's El Rufai, who's like, the small but a giant.
He's the experienced one here.
Experienced politician. Giant of the north. And there's Atiku, of course, vice president, who has been, vying for this ticket for so long. Serial. And so, these are very unlikely people.
So the one thing
this boss that they are carrying, this coalition.
Who will step down for who is the very
It's the biggest
first
boulder there.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting about about the coalition is that it is not even a caterpillar. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like a proper truck that can push these boulders.
I didn't take notes.
So it's
just
very clear
bus.
that the coalition may not stand a chance against those boulders. Because even the small one, if they run at 100 kilometers per hour coming in, it's a crash. Sorry.
It's a crash indeed.
It's a crash.
We've got more
you're good at cars now, isn't it?
No. This is not. It's not in my.
Cannot do anything.
No. Let's look at another strip here. I think it might be our last strip, but let's check this one out here. By the way, this is from Bulama's Daily Trust, and this wasn't the one I wanted to talk about. There's another one I wanted to show, just because that's the last that I can talk about. There we go. A fantastic representation of.
What's that cartoon that all of the characters were rats? In the 90s. It's not Danger Mouse.
It was Walt Disney, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Walt Disney.
You keep talking, I remember.
Okay.
What was it again? I know one of the characters was called Rattigan.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Sherlock. It was Sherlock Holmes-esque type.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but yeah, this is what it is. Yes, a community of rats. Who's enjoying, who's eating, who wants in the door. Coalition there knocking. And of course you can tell that this person perhaps will be somewhere inside of one, midterm, speech said, everybody is welcome and there's nothing wrong. If you come, we'll take you. So they're there knocking at the door, waiting for the largesse that whoever this is sitting on.
I mean, look at the tail of that rat, man. Woo!
What, is it that it's big and fat?
It's so big. The tail is massive.
Just take note of this situation and compare it to what we see currently when it comes to self-preservation in the political system. Everybody running to the ruling party right now. And I'm saying carry all your baggage, everything, bring it into the APC, even if it's doing a good job. It's still going to be attracting a lot of elements that it was in itself fighting against from before. But only this time,
who wouldn't want to get into that room? Look at that, the enjoyment that's going on there.
I bet you. Anyhow, that's as much as we can take, Judith. Thank you very much for helping me take a look at the strips for today. If you've got a couple that you'd like us to see, or maybe talk about next week, we always encourage that you send them in. You can use our socials and we'll be able to get them and put them here on our screen. We've got one more conversation now, don't we, Judith? I'll be back there. We'll have this conversation before the end of our weekend installment for Breakfast Extra.
You're welcome. Now it's time for our Wellness Central. Every puff costs more than money. It chips away at health. And you're wondering, what's the puff? We're going to get into that. But it also chips away at a quality of life. and in many cases, life itself. As the world marks World No Tobacco Day 2025, that is themed Protecting Children from Tobacco Industry Interference, attention is shifting not only to smokers but to those being drawn into the cycle early, particularly young people across developing nations like Nigeria. The World Health Organization, WHO, warns that over 8 million lives are lost annually due to tobacco use, with a growing number of these victims having started as teenagers. In Nigeria, the tobacco industry continues to find new ways to lure the youth through flavored products, digital marketing, and lax regulatory enforcement. While policies exist on, paper, enforcement is somewhat, slow, or should I say weak, and the health impact is staggering. So from increased risk of cancer and heart disease to the psychological grip of addiction, the implications are personal and societal, but quitting is possible, and countless lives can be saved from proper support systems, or if proper support systems are put in place. So this year's focus calls on governments, health practitioners, parents, and educators to push back against the silent, seductive reach of tobacco culture.
So while we have policies that have been put in place to help stem all of these, we are also being joined here in the studio for a proper examination of the health crisis that we find ourselves. We're going to explore solutions with Dr. Chukwu Bertrand, a medical doctor and also advocate for preventive medicine and public health education. You're welcome, Dr. Bertrand.
Thank you very much.
You look like a very Gen Z type doctor, by the way. Let me just say. I'm sure you get that all the time.
Yeah, a number of times.
But let's look at the stats. Let's look at the situation in Nigeria. How big of a smoking nation is Nigeria, and how does it affect all non-smokers?
Okay, Nigeria is quite, because of our population, we're one of the leading, most populated countries in the world, and on the global scale, we contribute a significant quota to the global smoking population, essentially.
And I'm wondering why or what's driving our habit in Nigeria. Is it a cultural thing? Is it an urban thing? What exactly drives that habit and that drives the numbers up?
It's difficult to summarize the pivotal causes, but most of it could be linked to societal causes, peer pressure, and people wanting to do what other people are doing, essentially.
Is that the same for young people as well?
Yes, exactly. It's actually more for young people. It's just like alcohol is. It's just a culture and habit that people form.
I have a theory, but I'll save it till the end.
Yes, because in the 90s there was ads that ran consistently, though they were glossy, good-looking ads. But at the end, smokers are liable to die on. On the packages of these things, when you see them, these things are sold in supermarkets, right? On the packaging, you will see the very gory images, right? And very boldly written, smokers are liable to die young, not available for people are still buying and selling. Why? Yeah, the packaging and the all the gory and macabre messages are actually intentional. It's part of the government sponsored attempt to try and curb these menace. But despite that, just like every other vice, people know the consequences, but still go ahead to do it. So that's why we're here to
Yeah, what are these consequences? You should let us know already. It's not like as if we haven't heard this song and dance before, but it's good to reiterate so people would hear. What are the consequences?
Yeah, so smoking is, I wouldn't want to place it at the top because it's not like there's any research to do that, but it's one of the leading causes of almost every single known ailment known to man. By causes, I mean risk factors. It's not like on its own it does cause these things, but it's a leading risk factor to a lot of conditions: hypertension, diabetes, cancers, especially lung cancer. In fact, more than 90% of lung cancers are linked to smoking. Chronic lung diseases like COPD, like some forms of asthma and all that. So smoking generally is almost linked, either directly or indirectly, to a lot of conditions. Really.
Now, you will have a lot of arguments in the urban area when it comes to the culture of smokers. People will tell you that, yes, I do not smoke nicotine, I smoke other substance, and they are, in quote, healthy. Can you debunk that? Marijuana is one of the leading alternatives.
I thought you were going to say vape.
Well, I'm coming to that. Oh, no, I'll leave that to you to ask. But let's start with marijuana and the fact that people seem to think that it is healthy or at least less harmful than nicotine. How true or false is this?
Well, it's just, as a short answer, it's very false. But generally speaking, I think I'll just answer all these questions in a lump sum.
Go ahead.
We call this non-nicotine products, of which marijuana is one of the leading alternatives. We have heroin and the likes. Then speaking about vapes too, we have shisha, there are just a lot of seeming alternatives. And every single one of them is dangerous in their own way. Let me break it down gradually. We're talking about vape, what some people call e-cigarettes, that's electronic cigarettes. They are also nicotine containing actually, they contain tobacco. I don't know of any vape that is non-nicotine. Probably there are, but I'm not aware of any. So most still contain either nicotine or other harmful chemicals. And the fact that you're inhaling this smoke, these harmful chemicals into the lungs is the main bone of contention here. These chemicals are getting into the lungs, interfering with the normal physiological processes of the respiratory system and other possible systems, and they cause these harms. For marijuana, this is actually very common. I have a lot of patients who are trying to wean off these addictions or going through withdrawals. And marijuana just works in a different way entirely. It doesn't contain nicotine, as you rightly said, but it contains other cannabinoids, which are just as dangerous. Though the mechanism of injury is quite different from nicotine, but it's still dangerous and it should be avoided as much as possible.
Okay. So let's we sound the alarm oftentimes. We talk about this oftentimes. Do you think that when it comes to the regulatory bodies or the enforcement bodies or the governments across the world, or is it capitalism? What else is driving the factors that we're seeing in terms of numbers? Because I don't know why Gen Zs are smoking. The number. Why?
Yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier. It's one of the many vices, and frankly, we the young ones, without proper guidance, we are prone to follow.
They think it looks good, Judith. They think it looks good.
Yeah, I don't understand. How old are you again? It's like, yeah, I'm old. No, you're not. You're 23.
But Judith, I always like to come at these topics from a very experiential point of view. Are you and I going to deny that we didn't have our experience as well?
Yeah, well,
if we
it was with food.
If we look back at how we got into it, you find out that it's not very different. It was for us the glorification of what it used to be like from the 70s into the 80s,
right? And
that you'd find every tough guy in a movie with a stick, John Wayne and all the rest and everything, like so up until now.
Yeah, exactly.
So that glorification. I smoked for over a decade, and people didn't know this, but I actually did. And when I tried to find exactly why it was that I started it, for something that I abhorred as a kid, getting into my early adult life, I took to it for 10 years, and there was no reason, there was no satisfaction why I was doing it. Absolutely zero.
Right. But we've seen the signs that it is a bad habit, and the long-term effects are dire, life-threatening, right? Why are we still seeing the numbers in sale spike?
Exactly.
That's really what the crux of this is. Is it capitalism? Is it the governments that have decided to look away? Is it the regulatory bodies that are weak and lax in their implementation? Why is tobacco still being sold?
Why is it being sold? So this is a multifaceted question that requires a multifaceted approach to answering.
As a doctor,
because there are a lot of should I say contributory factors.
Economic,
capitalist wise, the government also, because the tobacco industry is one of the biggest industries in the world, like by far, just like the pharmaceutical industry. And we understand the challenges that we face with both of these industries, despite the good that some of them tend to offer. So these are capitalist-backed initiatives with millions of dollars of revenue every single day. So it's going to take more, and the government is actually complicit in a way, really, because they are still part of the entire capitalist system. So in order to curb this, we just need a number of, should I say, intentional approaches, which which will also start from the government. You know, public health awarenesses. I rarely see any of this anymore in our TVs. You know, ads to curb these smoking habits, to warn adults and children alike.
In the 90s, it was always there, you know. But now they move it to nighttime. But even still, it's not as
it was also there because you could advertise tobacco.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So they had to balance out.
Yeah,
the information about.
Yeah.
You know.
So the children. Another is the sales of this thing. Malams can sell it to children, and like the low-income areas, impoverished areas, it can be sold to anybody. You know, there is no enforcement in the sales of it, and I want to bring it back home to Nigeria. How can we at least curb it? Because the theme of this is really about the children and the youth. How can we curb it, you know, and sound the alarm that it should not be sold to children? And, you know, children should.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, it should be sold to children.
Yeah, I'm seeing the futility in that, because if you talk about I'm sorry, I shouldn't be answering this with a good
go ahead.
But come on now. It's a culture thing here. If you go to certain places in Nigeria where you run an errand for your big uncles, it's the culture itself. Buy me this. You buy it. Next time he's going to go and buy, purportedly for his uncle, he's buying
for himself. Exactly.
You know, so you can enforce all you want. Uncle is still going to send. You know, it's the responsibility on the individuals. But doctor, you might have different
children.
It's primarily the responsibility of the adults, really. And there's something there's a major part of smoking that people seem to omit when it comes to children, because according to the WHO theme for this year, it's primarily about children, how to prevent
secondary
children from
smoking, isn't it?
So, yeah, there's a term, we call it second-hand smoking.
Second-hand.
Or passive smoking, which is actually just as dangerous. In fact, some researchers have shown that it is more dangerous than the primary smoker itself. So we have children in the same space, you know, as adults who smoke, and they are just as predisposed, they are just as exposed. So we really need to emphasize this. Even those who do not smoke, you go to clubs, you go to outings, you see people smoking shisha. By the way, smoking a vial of shisha is just as if you're smoking 200 cigarettes.
200?
I'm sorry.
Can you say that for the people in the back so that a vial of shisha is like 200 sticks, yes?
Yes, 100 to 200 sticks of cigarettes.
That's more than a pack of cigarettes.
That's about 5 packs of cigarettes, more than 5 packs. So, and there is this social media, probably social media or, you know, societal mental switch now to say shisha is safer than tobacco. No, it's 100 times more dangerous, really.
I hope you guys are hearing this. That's just crazy.
It smells good though.
So they use the flavor, the good flavor, to mask the. So it's just as dangerous, because in addition to nicotine and some other products, it contains a lot of terrible chemicals. Even the colorant itself that gives that
and a lack of filters.
Exactly.
So we do have laws in Lagos, in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, that prohibit people from smoking in designated areas, or actually gives designated areas for smokers. You can't smoke in public, and I don't think you can smoke in your car.
Yeah.
Because that's part of public. Are these helping the situation at all?
Yes, absolutely. It does help the situation. Having smoking designated areas, having smoke-free rooms, preventing people from smoking in public, preventing people from smoking around children. So these are all steps to curtail both primary and second-hand smoking, and it actually goes a long way to reduce the menace of this vice.
Okay.
Right. Before I let you go, let's all just a little bit, just because we're wrapping up. So I want you to just again not just sound the alarm, but also the health risks for those that have refused to hear. The health risk of smoking.
All right. So, like I mentioned earlier, smoking, the art of smoking itself, it's essentially you introducing dangerous chemicals into your lungs. That's essentially what smoking is, and it leads to lung conditions. By lung, I mean the breathing apparatus. Lung conditions, it leads to heart conditions, cardiac conditions. Most hypertensive cases are either caused or made or worsened by hypertension, because what smoking does is there are the veins, the arteries that supply blood to different parts of the body. So what smoking does is to constrict these arteries to reduce their relative sizes, increasing the pressure on the lungs and on the heart. It also leads to a lot of cancers: lung cancer, heart cancer, any form of cancer whatsoever, even gynecological cancer, that's cancers for women, cervical cancers, endometrial cancers, have all been linked to smoking.
Wow.
Essentially.
Interesting there. So I'm hoping that at least one or two smokers out there is taking word.
If you like, then you're
hoping that you will change, or at least maybe something happens.
Yes, and it's possible to stop, really. That's one of the...
Is it?
Yes. It's actually probably the most important thing we have to do here, actually. Stopping.
Sorry, Jerome.
That's...
pick me as opposed to chat. In any case, thank you very much for coming through for a Sunday, giving us the information that we need to hear. And I'm sure that for everybody who's been with us since yesterday morning, they've enjoyed every single conversation we've had here for Breakfast Extra. We will be back again next week, on next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, so watch out for that. But in between then, we'll be appearing on your TVs to bring you the news. And of course, Judith, you want to sound the alarm on our breakfast crew for tomorrow?
Oh yes, indeed. Make sure to join them bright and early, 7 a.m. in the morning. Joe, Olive, and Benga is going to be with you all the way from 7 a.m. down to 10 a.m. So it's wonderful, all the important news analysis just for you to get you started on your mornings. We'll be back, as Mizuno said, 8 a.m. Saturday morning. Until then, it's bye from Nat for us.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.